Wrestlers be talking. There's literally a talent category named for it, mic skills. Part of the gig is talking people into the building to watch the show. But some wrestlers say things that are probably only hurting their gimmicks. And we're not talking about best friends forever like Jim Cornette and Vince Russo. The controversial things they say only make their fan bases love them more. No, we're talking about performers who are killing their causes with the questionable things that spill out of their mouth holes. I'm Senor Siete for 7 Wrestling, and let's take a look at 7 wrestlers who should probably shut up. Now, if you enjoy this list, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and DDT that notification bell. Number 1. Ryback. The human bulldozer known as Ryback used to smash preliminary talent while encouraging some unseen buffet manager to feed him more, and the fans ate it up. No pun intended. However, once the artist formerly known as Ryan Reeves had to start squaring off against actual known wrestlers, and he wasn't allowed to squish people in 30 seconds, he enjoyed a brief run in the main event. The fandom would cool off, and he eventually found himself relegated to the mid-card. Which isn't all bad. He had a run with the Intercontinental title before leaving the company due to a pay dispute. Which, oh boy, get this. On a Tumblr post, Ryback would say, "It blows my mind how in a sport which is predetermined from a company standpoint, winners are paid so much more than the losers. Every single person who works for WWE from top to bottom is absolutely just as valuable as the next. The winners cannot win unless losers go out there and agree to lose to them. It blows my mind that in this day and age, though we still adhere to this formula, why is it a guy who is told he's going to go out and lose and does everything he is told be paid not only less, but much less than said winner over a period of time? You know, like in the Terminator movies where all the people that the Terminator terminates get paid the same amount as Arnold Schwarzenegger? This isn't boxing, dude. You're not taking a dive, you're an actor on an acting show. From there, he moved to Twitter or X or whatever they call it these days and had such charming moments as poking fun at Vince McMahon for not being able to help his mother when she was beaten when he was a child, or straight up calling Vince McMahon's mother a whore, or picking a fight with Booker T, who, if his fight with Batista is any indication, would end terribly for Ryback. Best of all, he hosted a poll asking fans what he should do next. Go to AEW, NXT, Impact, or just straight up retire. Hilariously, the fans chose retire by a wide margin. An annoyed Ryback blamed the result on fraudulent votes and asked for them to vote again, and the internet being the internet, this time retire won by an even larger margin. All of this raises an interesting question about guys who have undefeated streak gimmicks. Does it alter their view of the system and how it should work? We've seen it from The Ultimate Warrior. We've seen it from Ryback. We've seen it from number 2, Goldberg. The year was 2009, the venue was TMZ, and Goldberg was quoted as saying, "I wouldn't work for Vince McMahon if he was the last curse word on the planet." And he never worked for Vince again. Man of his word. End of story. Number 3, Braun. Just kidding. We all know that wasn't true. Goldberg would return to the WWE and Vince McMahon in the fall of 2016 and be treated better than any WCW star ever. Remember Sting, Booker T, Diamond Dallas Page? Goldberg was given a squash victory over Brock Lesnar in the main event of the Survivor Series. And mind you, Brock Lesnar hadn't taken a clean pinfall in years at this point. He broke the Undertaker streak, he murder death killed John Cena, and he wiped the floor with everyone. From there, he won the Universal title a few times, squishing promising young talents in the process. He received some mega Saudi Arabian paydays, he almost killed The Undertaker, and he participated in some of the shortest title match main events in the company's history. So he wasn't doing much, but he was getting paid a lot in return. And when Vince McMahon left the company due to sexual misconduct allegations, the plans for a Goldberg retire match were scrapped while his contract expired. And Goldberg was not happy about it. So yeah, this isn't as dire as Ryback calling Vince's mother a whore, but for someone who received so much during his final run, without giving much back in return, maybe Goldberg should settle down a bit. Number 3, Braun Strowman. It's a tale as old as time. the never-ending battle between the big bruisers and the smaller acrobatic wrestlers. And the bruisers had the edge for a long time. Outside of maybe Lanny Poffo, nobody was doing flips in the WWE in the 1980s, just big dudes. But those days have passed. Gone are the days of a body slam wowing a crowd. Today's talents have a whole arsenal of high-impact, death-defying tricks up their sleeves. Well, some of them do. And this isn't a knock on the powerhouse style. It still very much has a place. Guys like Mark Henry were awesome at bouncing smaller talents around the ring. But to put down a whole style of wrestling because you don't do it makes you look out of touch. To put it into perspectives, there are wrestlers who would rather be in WWE than in AEW. And there are wrestlers who would rather be in AEW than in WWE. There are no wrestlers who would rather be in the Indies than in AEW or WWE. And when Braun was let go by WWE, AEW did not come a-knockin'. So if Braun is going to be WWE for life, he'd better be on his best behavior. Unfortunately, though, Braun has a history of saying short-sighted things on Twitter. He's sleeping with this fan's mother. He's bashing indie wrestlers. It's not a good look. Perhaps the monster among men should consider being the monster without social media. Oh, and speaking of people who don't like flips, number 4, Dax Harwood. Originally known as the Revival in WWE, FTR pictures themselves as a throwback team in the same vein as the Brainbusters or the Midnight Express, and they do a fantastic job. They've done their best to turn tag team wrestling into an art form. And boy, does Dax love Bret Hart. Loves him, adores the man, can't say enough good things about him, which is cool. We're big fans of the Hitman too, but it's kind of the same deal with The Rock and his "I only got $7 in my pocket" story. Dude, we know. We can move on, buddy. Then there's his on-again, off-again feud with wrestling reporter, star enthusiast Dave Meltzer, which is weird because on one hand, he doesn't like the way Dave reports, and then on the other hand, he clearly gets a kick out of the ratings Dave gives his matches. And aside from that, we've got his cringy, transparent attempts to work the marks with things like a photo that accidentally has a paper with the WWE logo on the corner. We've got his promo where he attempted to paint the beloved tag team of MJF and Adam Cole as spoiled rich kids while he's just a hard-working Joe. Yeah, that got over like a spinach sundae. We've got his podcast, his verbal filleting of CM Punk. It was all just a lot, especially from somebody who considers himself a throwback to another era. Seriously, could you imagine Arn Anderson or Bob Eaton doing any of this? No. They'd be in the hotel bar somewhere enjoying a few cold ones while watching Ric Flair expose himself to a horrified cocktail waitress. Oh, and speaking of, number 5, Ric Flair. When you're putting together your Mount Rushmore of greatest talkers of all time, the Nature Boy Ric Flair absolutely needs to be there. Wheelin' dealin', kiss stealin', to be the man, you gotta beat the man. Space Mountain may be the oldest ride, but it's still got the longest line in the park. How did he never get sued by Disney? Anyway, the Nature Boy hasn't been in the ring since his last match, but that hasn't stopped him from weighing in on the careers of his daughter Charlotte Flair and her husband Andrade El Idolo. And boy, does he ever. To hear the Nature Boy tell it, every match either one of them has is the best match on the card and arguably the greatest match in human history. In one episode of his podcast, he had a fit that Charlotte and Rhea Ripley were passed over for the main event of WrestleMania in favor of the Usos defending the tag team titles against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Flair would say, "There's no way that Sami and KO and the Usos would go on after Ashley and Rhea. No way. Only in the WWE." And when his podcast buddy Conrad Thompson made the point that the Bloodline story was the biggest thing on WWE TV, Flair countered with this: "That's not the point. We're talking about a single championship from a girl that won the Royal Rumble. Why are we breaking tradition for just one night? For what? Why are we breaking tradition for one night?" First of all, if the Rumble winner always gets the main event slot, that's going to be news for Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio and Shawn Michaels and Rey Mysterio and Edge and Randy Orton and Shinsuke Nakamura. And second of all, while Ripley and Charlotte did have a fantastic match, the build was ice cold. And Sami Zayn was arguably the most popular person in the company at the time. Long story short, Mama Siete thinks I'm the best, smartest, strongest boy of all time. But I know it's not true. Charlotte is a fantastic in-ring performer, potentially the greatest of all time. But every time Ric Flair spouts off something like that, it hurts both of their legacies. Number 6, Natalya. Have you ever seen that fun exercise where you're given a list of athletes and you have to make a roster using a set amount of money? You get like $15 and the best players are $5, the second best are $4, and so on. It's fun, right? Well, Natalya doesn't think so. When Fox Sports created a similar game using the WWE women's roster in 2021, the former women's champion went off on Twitter. I have struggled for years to figure out exactly what my worth is, but I won't allow anyone to pick that number for me. As hurtful as seeing as this is, I want it to be known that if I ever find myself under all of these wonderful women, it's because I'm a pillar and a foundation of what we're doing. So please keep the $1 because anyone who knows anything knows how priceless I am. Okay, so here, first of all, they weren't saying you were worth $1. The dollar amounts are totally arbitrary. It'd be just as easy to say she was worth $1 million and the budget was $15 million. And second, how is Natalya claiming that she deserves a higher slot than the other women in 2021? The top row is the 4 horsewomen, arguably the most popular and talented women in the company. Then you've got Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Dakota Kai, Kaylee Ray, all stars on the rise. With the exception of possibly Lana and Nia Jax, there isn't a single name on this list I'd take over 2021 Natalya. Natalya, who the closest thing she's ever come to a marketable catchphrase was, "Settle your tea kettle." Natalya, who hasn't changed her gimmick since her debut 15 years ago. I'm sorry, wait, does adding cat ears count as new gimmick? Now, none of this is to discount Natalya's worth in the ring, as she proved in a recent Raw match with Rhea Ripley. She can still go. But as far as a character on a TV show, her narrative worth is significantly lower than the majority of the women on the roster. And if she needs any tips on how to change her presentation up, she should probably talk to number 7, Chris Jericho. Maybe it's fitting that we get a little biblical with a guy named Jericho, but good old Matthew 6:3 states, "But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." Basically, that means if you do a good deed, you shouldn't run off bragging about it. Which is exactly what Jericho did after putting over relative unknown Action Andretti on AEW Dynamite. The former Ayatollah of rock and roll would appear on the In the Click podcast and discuss how he made the decision to have AEW sign Andretti and then allow Andretti to beat him on live TV. He then goes on to discuss how he never got his win back and he never will. He then reiterated that point saying, "I will never beat Action Andretti." That's awesome. What a guy. Now, we're not going to go all cornet on you and complain about Jericho pulling back the curtain, but now that you know this little story, when you think of Andretti's moment, do you think of a plucky rookie pulling off a win against a future Hall of Famer? Or do you think about Jericho's good deed? We were probably better off not knowing. Well, that's our list. Did we forget any wrestlers who should probably keep quiet? If so, leave them in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and press that notification bell. Until next time, I'm Senor Siete for 7 Wrestling saying bye-bye.